Welcome back to PH.d TV, and today I'm going over my top 5 James Bond films. So I got 5 James Bond films right here, and I'm not going to rank these in any order except for the one that I am very much aware is my number 1 James Bond film. But to kick us off is The Living Daylights.
The name that means excitement is back. Bond. James Bond.
That girl must be very talented.
Shoot up.
Believe me, my interest in her is purely professional.
What is this?
I've had a few optional extras installed.
Wherever he goes, adventure follows.
Two of our men are dead. Koskov's named you.
Then I must die.
Eliminate him.
Kill him! He lives for danger. He lives for the moment. He lives on the edge.
Whoever she was, I must have scared the living daylights out of her.
James Bond, 007, The Living Daylights.
And something that I really enjoy, something that I really like about The Living Daylights is that I feel like this is probably and debatably one of the last true Ian Fleming styled novel Bond films of the old Cold War era style films. And the reason I say that is that I have gave my ranking of James Bond actors, and in doing so, I have described wholeheartedly that I think Timothy Dalton is very underrated and actually is, if I remember how I ranked it, top 3.
Actually, no, never mind. He wasn't top 3, but I'll just keep going.
But the thing is that I think Timothy Dalton is actually the most book accurate to a T. Daniel Craig was really close. And Sean Connery wasn't bad, but his kind of turned into the movie Bond by his last film. But in terms of The Living Daylights, I think Timothy Dalton, as he did, read all the books. He took the literary book version of Bond to the theater and to the screen and to the set and just made it happen. He did not take the, what is the James Bond that people know from the movies?
I want to bring literary Bond to the screen.
With that being said, that is what The Living Daylight is. I think because of the Dalton performance, we get something that we lose after Brosnan. And I love Brosnan. I think he is awesome. He's one of my personal favorites. It's the one that I really technically grew up with before Craig was my first theater experience Bond. But coming from the guy who loves the Bond novels, The Living Daylights is that sweet spot of over-the-top action, over-the-top story with the classic Bondisms. And now, again, not in any particular order, but the next film I have is Skyfall.
Country.
England.
Gun.
Shot.
Agent.
Provocateur.
Murder.
Employment.
Skyfall. Skyfall.
Done. Some men are coming to kill us. We're gonna kill them first.
And now, this one may be because I have a little bit more of an emotional attachment to it. I was raised by my mother and my grandmother. My grandmother got cancer and was passing away, and she loved James Bond. That was one of the things we looked forward to. And she passed away in 2012 before she could ever get to see Skyfall, and I'd even had tickets for both of us to go. But with that being said, it was also just that feeling I had of going to go watch Skyfall for what it was. but it helps tremendously that it is one of the best James Bond movies ever made. Daniel Craig is top tier and probably his most Ian Fleming-esque version of his performance to the character. The cinematography is hands down the best in the entire series. The outfits, the sartorial style is outstanding. The Bond girls are great. Judi Dench in her final role is fantastic, and Raul Silva as a bad guy played by Javier Bardem is one of the best, and easily the best villain of the Daniel Craig tenure. And it really brings James Bond into the world of modern technology, and just as the entire point of that movie is sometimes the old ways are the best ways versus the new ways, how it's people having espionage in-house versus doing everything over the computer, over online, hackers versus the blunt instrument that Daniel Craig's Bond was. Skyfall represents this perfectly, even though it does get a little bit Home Alone by the end of it. That's the point of the movie. Sometimes the old ways are the best. And now again, these are my top three. These next two could be flip-flop for second, third place, second, however you want to put it, but they're my top two because my number one is number one. I'm gonna go with Goldfinger.
007. It spells Bond. The envy of every man, the nemesis of the treacherous Mr. Goldfinger.
Goldfinger!
Who are you?
My name is Pussy Galore.
Isn't it customary to grant the condemned man his last request?
Girls and danger. The hotter the danger, the cooler he takes it.
I think you've made your point, Goldfinger. Thank you for the demonstration.
And the thing about Goldfinger is that this is the Bond movie that created the template. This was the blueprint for what every Bond movie would soon do after this movie. Dr. No was an introduction to the character and did a great job, a little bit more book accurate than the rest of the movies did. And with From Russia with Love, we had a great Cold War espionage film that is a great film to its own outside of being a great James Bond film. But Goldfinger brought the gadgets. Goldfinger brought the Bond girls as we know them. It created the formula. Again, the template, the blueprint, the formula, everything you want to call it, this is what this movie did for the rest of the series. This is the one movie that every movie after took notes and emulated in their own style. So it has to be respected. It's one of my favorites. It's personally my favorite Sean Connery performance out of all of these movies because he just feels so comfortable in the role, and the Aston Martin is just wonderful. And I'm not a car guy,
Even though that's what I do for my job.
but that Aston Martin is chef's kiss. But Goldfinger, I'll tell you this, I have a hard time watching older films a lot of times, a lot of occasions I have a hard time with that. That's a movie that I think has aged like fine wine. And now with number two, we actually are gonna go right into GoldenEye.
No more foreplay.
Name's Bond. James Bond.
And this is obviously going to be the sole Pierce Brosnan film in this category of my top 5 James Bond films. And I'm going to say the reason why is because I was born in 1996. GoldenEye had just come the year before. And by the time I really started getting into the Bond films, Die Another Day had been the one that had just been released on VHS and DVD at the time. This is pre-Blu-ray. And so before Daniel Craig as Bond was even a thought, before he was even considered, I had to look back on the Pierce Brosnan films. I had to look back at the Roger Moore films. I had to look at the old ones. And old, I hate to say that word, but the previous films. And GoldenEye, I do believe, was my very first Bond film. I remember seeing the cover, you know, the black outline with the explosion where Brosnan has the gun looking right at the camera and he's running just underneath where his chin is on the poster. And two, I never had a Nintendo 64, but obviously if you're a Bond fan, you know what that means to the general public. GoldenEye did so much for the Bond series as a revival because unfortunately, even though I'm a Dalton fan, he did no favors and there was a long hiatus before we had Bond return to the silver screen. So Brosnan, in his first film, which I also believe is his best film, brought us something where we had the gadgets, we had the suits, we had the women, we had the story, we had a great villain, we had everything you could have wanted out of a Bond film, and we got it. So, GoldenEye. And for my actual, again, not really a true ranking this whole thing, but for my actual number one favorite James Bond film, which is actually my number one favorite film of all time to begin with, and it's actually probably the majority of the Bond culture's, Bond community's favorite film, and that is going to be Casino Royale.
This may be too much for a blunt instrument to understand. Any thug can kill. I want you to take your ego out of the equation.
So you want me to be half monk, half hitman?
I knew it was too early to promote you.
Well, I understand 00s have a very short life expectancy.
Casino Royale is one of those movies where I actually went to see it in 2006 with my grandmother because, as I said, we would go see these movies together. It was a packed theater, and I want to say it was one of my first opening nights where I went to a theater to watch any movie, and I couldn't see over the heads of people because we were so stacked in this theater. And then I have to ask my grandmother, why is the opening shot in black and white? Why is James Bond not a 007 yet? And then from there, let's put it this way. I wasn't aware it was an origin story until I was halfway through the movie. I was like 11 at the time, so my concept for following story right off the bat, I was expecting just another mission. But it turned out to be this amazing experience where, again, it had everything. The clothes, the drink, the locations, the cinematography, the performance by Craig, I think in that movie specifically is the best Bond performance, book accurate or not, in the entire series. It is the best performance in the entire series. The best Bond girl, in my opinion, at least my favorite Bond girl, with Vesper Lynd, with Eva Green, who was born to be a Bond girl, especially at the time. In a story that I'll put it this way, I will link this up here. I had one of my best buddies, Garrett, come and watch this movie in a series that we're doing where we're going to watch each other's favorite films. He had not seen the movie. He saw the movie for the first time in my den. We watched it and he liked it. He understood why it was so good. I'll put it this way, it was a man's movie where you have this macho guy who's also subtly sensitive while also having that brawn with this good masculinity, who dresses well, who drinks well, gets the woman, has a plot that ages wonderful. It's a 1950s novel, if I'm not mistaken, that was made in 2006. And even today, it was relevant. It's a great movie. And again, if you're a Bond fan, which you probably are because you're watching this video, I think we can all agree this is the top tier Bond movie. And even if it's not your favorite, it's probably not your last. With that being said, let me know what you think. What are your top 5 James Bond films? Are they the same as mine? Are they different? Put them down below. Comment. And once you comment, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and by doing so, you're gonna help me grow my channel. So again, I thank you in advance for doing all the above. Hit that notification bell. And again, this has been PH.d TV. I'll see you next time.